we have made progress in closing the education gap, certainly in primary school, but we need to do much better. And we've made progress in terms of access to health in many ways. We haven't done as well as we need to do in women's economic participation. It's still at that mid-range, 60% range, and women still are being marginalized or still segmented to the informal workplace that's not counted, even though they have the great burden of care around the world. So there's been a lot of progress in that space, to be sure, but we have a considerable way to go. As Booz and Company said in a recent study, 1 billion women are on the precipice of creating a sector to rival China and India in terms of economic impact, but that is only if they're empowered. Also in terms of women's political participation, this is probably the worst area for progress to be seen over the last many, well, forever it seems. But women still are, as one friend of mine said, stuck in that 16% ghetto. If you look at any number of countries, on average, we're not doing all that well. 16%, 17% in parliaments, in major political decision-making bodies. So that is still a struggle, accessing that kind of power. And you see that mirrored on the corporate side in terms of boards of directors or highest level management. Despite all of the progress women have made in the developed world, in France and the United States, et cetera, in terms of graduate education and coming out of school in record numbers, going into both politics and the corporate sector, still not with that kind of ability to break through. So we have challenges ahead. Well, I think sometimes law is the only answer. I know that certainly some countries, I think 3 here in Europe, have set quotas for corporate directorships, for example. There have been quotas put in place for political participation in terms of parties, not always complying, I might add, but that's been put in place. In some places it's worked. In India, for example, quotas were set for the lowest level of governance, the village level, the panchayats. There are now over 1 million women participating in governance at the local level. They're running for seats far beyond quota seats anymore, and they're having tremendous impact. There are others who are trying through non-quota measures to be able to address some of these issues. But I think in tough places where women will never be able to participate without some kind of law, it's absolutely necessary for women, and maybe that's where we should put our emphasis. We've got to do a far better job, I think, in making our workspaces more flexible. You know, really, when you look at the ways that law firms and companies are conducting themselves, in many ways it hasn't changed in the 21st century from the way it was in decades past when women weren't participating at all in the formal workplace or only minimally. So we have not caught up with the way that the workplace has changed and the diversity that is represented today. I think this whole issue of women and the child care issue and the motherhood issue is one that absolutely does need to be addressed. In my country, for example, half of our workforce is female. The majority of moms with kids under the age of 1 are in the workplace. And yet we have a very checkered, quilt-like response in terms of child care. They need affordable, quality child care. As President Clinton so often used to say when I worked for him, which is we need to be able to be good parents and good workers, and they should not be in conflict. So we have obligations both governmentally and in terms of the private sector and society in general to respond to this phenomena. And I think that women's choices should be respected in terms of their having families. I think adjustments could easily be made. I salute those companies that are now recognizing that a woman is going to take several years off. And if she does, she should be able to ramp back on And many of those enlightened companies are not wanting to lose the talent they had, and they're enabling that worker to come back on much faster through an immersion course, going back to the kind of work she was doing, not being demoted in the process. But so many aren't going back, and they're not going back because the environment is too hostile. It's unreceptive. And when you look at the lifespan of women today, and you look at their skills and their education and their experience, and the fact that they should also be respected for the decisions they make to be mothers, which benefits our society significantly, we have got to make the adjustments that we need to make to accommodate this reality. There is one question I always get, and there's a question that she always gets, and that is, do you think the day will come when the glass ceiling in the United States will be broken for the presidency? And women say to me she has to win for us. And I think what that means is that to be able to demonstrate that in the United States of America a woman can be president sends a strong message about women all over the world, that we can succeed, whether it's in the private sector, whether it's in civil society, whether it's in government, and that in many ways is sort of one of the ultimate glass ceilings to crack. I think if a woman can succeed and do the job well, it's to advantage all of society. I think one of the problems we have in politics today is that the talents, the experiences, the perspectives of women are so rarely brought to the decision-making process when it really needs to be there. And by that I mean, take the decisions of the French Parliament or the U.S. Congress or any institutions around the globe. They are making decisions for all of society, men, women, and children. And those decisions are being made by a very narrow slice, and certainly with almost half the population of those places not participating, except minimally. That does not produce the kind of balanced product that comes out of those decisions that I think would be for the betterment of society. So we shortchange women who want to run and hopefully succeed, but we also shortchange society. And this is what I think we have to keep in mind, that when women progress, we all progress. And when women can make their contributions, they're not just about women making contributions. It's about contributions that really can impact and serve all of society. And that's what we should strive for.